No, they definitely knew my mental side because, I mean, the physical, like everything, like in sports, people see, what happens on the field. They see the shine, they don't see the grind. So the mental aspect of all of this was way worse for me than the physical. I mean, the physical, obviously, you can say, hey, it's my leg, and you can pinpoint it. With the mental, you're kind of like taking all these different things and trying to make it make sense, but you just know what you're feeling for the moment, so you're kind of more moving by emotion. So I mean, it wasn't written on my face. I'm a glass half full guy, so I wasn't walking around like, my dragging my feet head on the ground. But I mean, like I said, I couldn't watch football. It's not me.
We gon' get on. Talk to 'em. You ain't got a choice. You gotta notice me living my best life like it's supposed to be. Wake up feeling good, even looking better. I don't know if it's the smile, the cash, or the sweater, but everything is lovely.
Welcome to Bailey and Buck Unplugged, where we talk about sports, entertainment, and mental health in support of the Kennedy Kids Foundation. If you're struggling with mental health, we encourage you to speak up and get help. A great place to start is 988. That's the free crisis prevention lifeline. Or you can check out the resources tab at kennedykids.org. If you are in an absolute emergency, please dial 911. Either way, we want you to know that you are not alone and that you don't have to struggle, and speak up, get help. There are resources available to you, and we are here to support you. If you're new around here, I want to introduce you to our host. I am Misty Buck. I am an author and a mental health and performance coach. And my co-hosts are Robert Bailey. He is the president of Rosenhaus Sports, the president of Kennedy Kids Foundation. He's a two-time Super Bowl champion, two-time college national champion. He's an NFL record holder, and he's an ESPY winner. And we are also joined by Bailey Brooks Masburn. She is a celebrity wedding and event planner, a former NFL cheerleader, and the executive director of the Kennedy Kids Foundation. So we're super excited to welcome today's guest. We have Brian Poli-Dixon. You might know him as a UCLA alum, which is we love that program over there. He is a former professional athlete. He played for the NFL for several teams. I think the 49ers, the Saints, the Chargers. Had a little bit of history there. Maybe he'll get into it. Maybe he won't. We'll see. That's the awesome part of the show. We never know what we're going to chat about. But today he's also super, super cool. He's an award-winning international artist. Brian, I was reading a little bit about you, and I think your journey to becoming an artist was super fascinating. And I just want to mention that, and this is really impressive, y'all. He, in Art Basel in 2021, he received the Best New Exhibitor Award, which is like the coolest thing ever to me because there are so many amazing artists at Art Basel. If you guys have never been, you guys got to check it out. So with that, Brian, I want to welcome you to the show.
Hey, I appreciate you guys having me. Bailey, Robert, Misty, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we're super excited to have you. So we're going to dig into your career, but, we want to ask every guest a signature question in the beginning, right? So I want to know, was there a specific moment in your career when you realized the importance of mental health? Because, we are all about mental health on this show.
I would say if I had to pinpoint one would be at the combine, so it was the 2002 combine, and I tore my hamstring pretty much off the bone running in 40, running my second 40. And that was a life-changing moment, so I kind of had the trajectory. Everything was kind of going one way. I put a lot of work in, like as everybody else who was there did. And then to kind of have that situation at that time, because I mean, it's kind of a worst case scenario to be hurt, right? Like with a serious injury at the combine, because now, it prevents, my personal workouts had to get canceled, pro day. I mean, all these kind of different things, put me on the shelf that way. So that was tough. That was really, really tough because I'm watching now all the guys I came in with, they're at the combine too. They're getting drafted. They're in the league now. And I'm over here kind of trying to nurse an injury and kind of had a limp into the league that way with, the first day going into the training room. So, that was a very low spot for me, and I was, and then eventually when, the game was over, due to this injury, that just put a real deep hole in inside my soul that you probably wouldn't have seen from the outside, but on the inside, I was definitely hurt, so that was kind of like, I would say, I mean, outside of Well, geez, if I have to go back now, and I'm thinking about it as we're talking, I'm a child of divorce. So I think actually childhood trauma was probably my first indication of something not necessarily being right, And as a kid, everything is kind of just thrown at you, stuff is happening, but you don't really know how to process it. And then as an adult, you kind of look back and now you kind of see how things are stacking up and why, if you start connecting the dots, why things might be the way that they are. So, I was a kid, because of, the volatility of the divorce and stuff like that. I think I started child therapy as a kid. So, I mean, I would say probably going back to that, if I really had to break it down, that was the first time I was kind of inclined to knowing about it, but not necessarily because back then too, I mean, we're going way back now. So the whole mental health conversation really wasn't, where it is now. So it was just kind of like pinpointing there's something wrong there that needs to be addressed, and we need to go and kind of have a conversation about that.
So, go ahead, Misty.
Oh, it's okay. No, I was just going to say I can identify with that, and I think that's amazing. It is somebody who went through stuff with my parents got divorced when I was younger, and then that really affected me. And then dealing with stuff when I got older, I think. But you're right. It was something that nobody talked about back then, really until recently, right? So.
Right.
I'm impressed that your parents, though, put you in therapy, because that's not a thing that was something that like people, like not in my community, did. Like no one put their kids in therapy because they just were like dealing with their own issues. So the fact that you got therapy, that your parents paid attention to that and put you in, or at least let you speak to someone at that point, just to like express your feelings and get that out, that is impressive on your parents' side. How did you? First of all, I never knew a hamstring was attached to the bone until you said it like separated from the bone. So that just blew my mind. But then so not only do you have to go through physical therapy now, and you're at the combine of all things, like you made it to combine. What did you share mentally though, when you were going through the recovery part of that? Like, and how that happened to you? Like, were you talking to other people about what you were going through mentally, or were you just dealing with the physical trauma of it?
No, they definitely knew my mental side because, the physical, like everything, like in sports, people see, what happens on the field. They see the shine, they don't see the grind. So the mental aspect of all of this was way worse for me than the physical. I mean, the physical, obviously, you can say, hey, it's my leg, and you can pinpoint it. With the mental, you're kind of like taking all these different things and trying to make it make sense, but you just know what you're feeling for the moment. So you're kind of more moving by emotion. I mean, it wasn't written on my face. I'm a glass half full guy, so I wasn't walking around like, dragging my feet head on the ground. But, like I said, I couldn't watch football. The people around me kind of, it was a lot of these things where, people would say, the thing, because then you kind of get into kind of cliche stuff that like for the person who's going and dealing with it, it sounds so, I mean, like when the person's saying who's not dealing with it, yeah, think positive, or hey, think everything happens for a reason, all these different things. But when you're sitting there soaking in your own emotions, it doesn't feel like you can see that light at the end of the tunnel sometimes. So, yeah, I mean, it was, obviously people that were close, my family, my agent, my teammates that were around me that, not necessarily the ones that I, on going into like the league, but the ones, my college guys, stuff like that. They know I got a bad break. So, everybody was there, but I'm trying to just figure out, because everybody knows their body. So if you're running around and you don't feel right, or you kind of feel insecure about moving around, and every step you're taking, you're thinking about it, and I wasn't at the top of the food chain coming out of the draft either. So now I'm, I got a bad leg. I'm trying to learn the plays. I'm bottom of the food chain. There's just a lot of mental stuff that's going on right there. So I mean, just that alone, without even running around on the field, I mean, it's a lot. So. I mean, I had a support system, but at the end of the day, I mean, I got to look in the mirror myself. So I wasn't happy there. So regardless of what people are saying at the time, it's kind of in one ear and out the other until you can kind of figure it out for yourself. That was the space I was in.
So how did you climb out of that mental hole of the injury?
To be honest, art, to be honest with you, because I think that when let's say you have an amazing career, like you take a guy like Tom Brady, or you take, anybody, let's say it's over, or you get hurt, or somehow it's stripped away from you, or it's over, you're always kind of longing for something to fill the void of that, because I mean, the guys, they love a lot, it's not even so much the games. The games are great, but all the, the locker room, the bus rides, the hotels, all that camaraderie and stuff like that. That part is something that you really miss. But so as a competitor too, it's like, what's next? What's next? And it's one thing to choose to do that, and it's another thing to have that kind of like forced upon you. So art was one thing that now I feel like I have my purpose again. And, and everything now, when you look back on things, you can kind of say, okay, this is my path. This is what my purpose is supposed to be. But so art has really filled the void for me. So I think that mentally gives me purpose, gives me something to look forward to. And I know it's like, God forbid something happens, but it's something I can do until I, 90 years old. So, I mean, but art's been life-changing.
That's awesome. Just for the fans who are watching the podcast, the Combine is a location where all 32 teams and their staff, they all gather to evaluate all the potential players in the country of who they're going to draft, right? So they go through this entire evaluation. It's actually the most important event in the process of trying to get into the NFL. So I'm just trying to bring something to the viewers, how important this event was for you, and to tear your hamstring at this event is the worst. It's the absolute worst thing that can happen, right? For your career. And then to tear your hamstring and tear it off the bone, which is an absolute long recovery. How long did that take for you before all your pain was gone?
I'm still not right with that.
Wow.
Yeah.
It is a tough. Yeah.
So, I mean, I got a hole in the back of my leg. Like, if I had to run from a dog right now, I got a better chance of turning around and trying to fight the dog, I mean, and at the same time, though, I mean, I'm still, an above average athlete compared to the rest of the world.
Yeah,
right now.
of course.
Like, I can still hoop, play tennis, work out, stuff like that. But as far as running full speed, in the NFL or at receiver with on a bad wheel, I mean, that's just pretty much not going to happen. But yeah, but I mean, I can still move around a little bit right now.
I've been in situations, Brian. I played 11 years in the NFL. So as you can imagine, that's 11 training camps. That's 11 times during training camp, 11 training camps where you have a month of every day going to practice. And guys, I'm telling you, every day somebody goes down. Right. And when that person goes down, if they're not a high draft pick, they are done. They are basically going to get cut, and they are done. And it's you wake up in the morning, you go to practice, and if you can get to bed at night and be healthy, you're like, woo, like, my career is still good. And for Brian to say, even after that event, that he still dealt with this injury for that many years. I've been around guys who just get small injuries, and in the car just driving back to the dorm, they're crying, right? So for you to go through that many years with this injury and just in the back of your mind know or feel like my career is just not taking off, that's a day-to-day thing. We talked to Terry Crews, and just his coach called him a different name. He wanted to murder his coach.
Right.
But
right.
For you, I can imagine just everything that went through your mind. What was that very low point for you? I'm imagining when your career was over, but what was that like, and how did you say to yourself, like, I got to get out, I got to get from under this veil of depression that this injury has caused me for this many years?
Well, I think one is just time. One was time. But and like you said though too, so it's like me bouncing around the league, and also just mentally knowing that, like, coulda, shoulda, woulda. You're not running around like you could be. And then the last, like, for the 49ers and the Saints, I had to sign the rights to my leg away.
Right.
Now I'm signing the contract, and they're like, you got a pre-existing injury like that, that's serious. We can cut you. We don't have to be liable for that leg.
Yeah.
So That alone.
I'll just get ready to explain to everybody what that means. That means
I never even heard of that.
The
Yeah,
rights
why would
to
I?
my
But-
leg away. I signed my leg rights away.
Yeah, I never heard that
so
for
basically what Brian is saying is if you get injured, right, usually the team, and I'm just giving you guys some background as an agent. Usually the team will pay you until you get healthy. So it's what the union has negotiated with the NFL, that if one of our guys get injured, you have to continue to pay him because he did it on the job. It's like most jobs, right? You
like
get injured on the
workers'
job.
comp. This is like that.
Right, exactly. So what NFL teams will do is, hey, if you want a chance to play in the NFL and reach this goal that you've had since you were a kid, if you want us to sign you, we have to basically sign you, but you have to sign your leg, the rights that that we're responsible for your leg because you've had this pre-existing injury. So he has to go into a situation where he's like, okay, the one part of my body that most likely will go out, I'm not going to make you guys liable for that.
Okay.
It's horrible. Yeah. And then obviously Brian has said that, it's bothered him his whole career, even up to this point now. And guys, I'm telling you, I've had small injuries and I've come home, gotten into bed, cried, thought about, man, they're going to cut me. What am I going to do next? Brian, I know that feeling and I know the mental journey you went on. At what point did you say to yourself, man, what am I going to do next? And how did you get through that all the way to this point where you're now a famous artist?
Well, thanks for that. I think because I was very when you're young too, and you start seeing all the money flying around and stuff like that, I was very driven by money. Right. So it was I got to get the check. I want this, I want that. And then when it kind of gets stripped away, and you're like, wow, now I got to go into even though the league is still the real world, it's not like the real world. You go try to make $1 million in the real world. It's a little different than if you're a high level athlete, which is still next to impossible. But I'm just saying. So now I contemplate this. Now I'm over here thinking about what I wanted to do. I'm over here I'll go into real estate. I'll do this, I'll do that. But again, I was still focused on where the money was going. And I wasn't kind of tapping into what I was passionate about. So then I kind of took some time and just. I was working out a lot. As far as I was going to my local gym, I was there every day. And then I kind of started thinking about what are the things that I love, So I started training a kid who was trying to play football. So I started training him at the park. And then I was like, I really kind of like the training thing. I know it back and forth. I've done it my whole life. I love inspiring the youth, stuff like that, working with people, helping people. So I kind of just really try to break it down to what are the things that I really enjoy? What am I passionate about? And then I just started kind of chasing that. So I went to personal training, started doing that. I worked at a local gym. I gave myself a year goal. I was I'm just going to be here for a year, kind of get the business under my, learn the business and then branch out and, have my own business with that. So I think I just really though, to reiterate again, was just not chase the money, not go after directions that weren't, authentic to myself. And then just kind of honing in on what do I love. And then obviously if you're following your passions and stuff like that, you go from a 9 to 5 to a 24/7, but it just feels different, So
that's accurate.
So just chasing the passions, Rob,
Right. That's pretty cool.
Mm.
And so, just to jump forward to your artist career, why Genius?
So I constantly so when people ask a lot of times, what inspires you? That's probably the most, common question. Right. And then depending on how many times I've said it for the day or what the situation is, I kind of elaborate a little bit more than others. But I find inspiration literally if you are tapped in and you're aware of what's around you, there's inspiration everywhere. It's not like I'm in my studio and I'm waiting for this special painting or project to come to me.
Like some artists say, music comes out of the sky and goes in their head.
Right. So, but if you're tapped in, I constantly take a lot of notes. I'm constantly taking pictures. I write down things that people say. Movies, I'll pause it. Oh, I like that. So I constantly keep all these notes. And I use them as a source of my own inspiration because you forget things. I want to write things down all the time. So with Genius, I was in my living room, and I'll set up shop anywhere. You know, I mean, I got this. I mean, this is painted on the wall in my house. You know, so you know, so I was going through my notes, and I one time I wrote down that's genius. Like, not that I made it up, obviously, but I was like, that just seemed like a timeless, you know, it's just timeless, that expression right there. And then what did genius actually mean to me? So I did like this self-portrait. I was looking at it, and then I just put genius on its forehead. And it was like a self-portrait, and it was because these are my genius characters. So if you see these are like, anytime you see a character is considered a genius. So then you would have to, okay, so the last two letters of genius are US. You can see I highlighted right here. So I'm not calling myself genius. I'm saying all of us have that genius inside of us. So it's supposed to be a situation to where I want to inspire people either to identify and take their own genius to the next level, or try to explore what that really means for themselves and to follow that path, because that genius, what's really true to yourself, is what got me through, you know, into where I'm at as an artist right now. And then also too can help, you know, inspire other people to try to find that, you know, and really just kind of keep it true to themselves on what is really special about themselves. What's I don't care if it's you make the best tacos in, you know, North America. That's your niche, and you want to go after that, then go after that. So, but the genius is, I just, you know, my whole thing, it's us. It's us. It's not me.
I love that. I love that. Are you self-taught, Brian?
I am self-taught. I mean, in the sense of, you know, I mean, you know what they say, you know, you want to surround yourself with like-minded people. Okay. So, but like when also two people will say, how'd you go from being an athlete to an artist? You know, but since I was a kid, I mean, I was always attached to art, you know? So like, as far as like being creative, being artistic, those were things that were always inside of me, you know? So even when I went to UCLA, one of the main reasons why I chose to go to UCLA was because of the art program. You know, and it wasn't to be a painter how I am now, but it was to be into like, you know, graphic design, media arts, branding, advertising, and that kind of creative space. And I thought with like, if football didn't work out, I was in LA, one of the media capitals of the world, and it would be a great opportunity and some great synergy for myself, you know, post college. But it conflicted with the football schedule at the time because we had to have all of our classes before 2:00. So I signed to go to UCLA. They sold the art program heavy, and then when it was time to declare the major, they were like, you can't do that major, you know?
Yeah.
Oh no.
But to circle back, Rob, what were you saying as far as how I ended up there?
No, I was going to ask you another question. So my next question was really, because you said to yourself, you could do art for the rest of your life, right? Football, you can't. But I want to pose a question. If you could, because I want to know where your heart is. If you could play football for the rest of your life and make, you know, 50 million or 100 million, whatever it is, or be an artist for the rest of your life and make the same amount of money, which one would you choose? That's the question. Without the injury, you're a healthy football player, and you had the same amount of time, and you had the same amount of money. Where's your heart?
Right. I feel like that's a tricky question. I feel like I have a friend of mine. I'll pose questions like that, and they go, I don't like the question. Both. You know, I'm like, no, you have to pick one. You got to
choose. You got to choose.
They're like, I don't want to pick one, but yeah, I'll pick one for you. But that's a tough one. I would say art.
Okay.
I would say art because I'm not.
Because you're a genius.
my body's not at risk like that. Also, too, I know as much as like being there and all those special times, I know a lot of the guys were too like, man, this is amazing, but it's also going to be nice to be a civilian again.
Right.
You know? So, and also I can paint at any time. Also, I can get, you know, I can walk around, I can walk into someone's house with a marker and do something cool on the wall. I can go, and then also too, I get to keep expanding my reach. You know, I can go paint in Brazil. I can go into Japan, you know, and leave my mark right there, you know? And I
good choice.
Yeah, and it's inspiring. I feel like, you know, this is truly me. I was this way before I was a football player. I started playing football in my junior year of high school then. So, but art's my love, art's my passion. So it's like, you know, when people say like, hey, we're not talking work tonight. For me, I
Right.
can't not talk work because it's me. So
Right.
I don't look at it as work. But I mean, I could definitely, get heavy into the art conversation very easily at any time. But art.
That's
I
great.
love
Yeah.
this point of view that you just gave, by the way, because we have listeners who are athletes that at some point are going to make that transition. And we have anybody in their life who might make a transition. And that can be so scary for so many reasons. So I love the way that you described sort of the other viewpoint of what it's like on the other side of that. I think that that's going to be really helpful for a lot of people.
Well,
Yeah.
I think though too, what's important is, especially while you're in, let's say, while you're in college or while you're in the league, and while people actually care about you, because you're on for the moment. So I think if you're also too identifying these things that you're passionate about and things that you love, and you're able to leverage the situation that you're in for the moment and kind of merge the two, makes it easier transition for when you're out. It kind of like is an easier flow rather than it all being done and then you're trying to scramble to figure out what you want to do next. So I mean, so if you're attached to a franchise, something like that, when the people care, you have resources, you got people that know your name and want to support you, to kind of like just tap into that link right there at the moment, and then use that into whatever you do post your athletic career.
Oh, Brian, I'm learning stuff about you that I did not know. If you could look back on when you transitioned into the art piece, like full time and for real. By the way, I love that you picked art over football, only because I'm a mom. I just never think you should send your kid into a battle zone with their head like that. And you can do art for the rest of your life globally and paint anywhere and walk anywhere. It's like when you love what you do, you'll never work another day in your life. And
Right.
you walk around as your true self. Now, if there was something in particular somebody could have given you as a tool to use while you were going through or in the midst of the struggle through the recovery process and whatnot, what would it have been?
A tool to use when I was going through the recovery process of my injury post-career.
Yeah, or just even while you were down in the trenches trying to figure out how to move forward with just life, period.
Maybe like a mill.
A what?
$1 million.
$1 million.
Oh, a mill. Oh.
I would have thought.
Remember, he said he was
Is there any
driven by
mental
money.
health
It
tools?
was a great answer. He said he was driven by money for a long time.
I mean, that would have made me feel a little better for sure.
Yeah,
but
100%, 100%.
Because though
That's
now,
a great answer, though.
well, because at the same time though, too, you can't be half in, half out on this. When
Right.
people talk about like, don't put all your eggs into one basket. You damn well better put all your eggs in that basket, or you're not going to make it.
Right.
Playing ball.
I've heard that one before too.
Yeah. So then now when it's like, and those 5 years are a grind. It wasn't like I'm over here like stacking up all this money. This is a grind over here. So to come out of that too, now it's like I didn't have a whole bunch of money coming from that situation. Now I'm trying to spin and figure out what I want to do. So it's like, I guess, I mean, really I don't think there was anything at the moment, because it's like I had good people around. When you're a young person too, it's like it's like when they say like, don't touch the stove, it's hot. You still go and you still touch that stove a little bit. But then
You
at
got to
some
find
point,
out.
you have that awareness though, to where you're like, okay, I got mentors. People have already been there, done that. It mentally, you've already now tapped into knowing like, okay, wait, Robert said, don't touch the stove. I respect this guy. He's a mentor. I'm not going to touch the stove. So then you kind of like have this little like awareness, maturity thing that kind of taps in. So I think everything happens in the way it's supposed to happen. And that's how you become more knowledgeable. That's how you have these things because you've gone through trial and tribulation and you've made it through there. So like, hey, just keep working, you'll get out of it. Like, I'm not a stressor because I know I'll work it out, but at the same time, this wasn't in a good space. So, I mean, for the time, I mean, not this, if I were to give like a go back into time and say, what could you have given me? Literally, it would have just been money. Because at the time, I've already heard all the conversations. I heard this. I had certain things in place, but I just wasn't there mentally.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. It's kind of like a weird answer, I guess, but
it makes sense, but it's kind of funny when what you said in your answer, because that everything happens for a reason piece, and those quotes come up, what people used on you when you were like in the midst of the pain and the agony of it and you didn't want to hear it, but that's exactly what they were telling you is how that's exactly what sounds like it came to fruition for you.
Yeah. And I actually want to piggyback on that a little bit and have a question kind of regarding that. So something I'm always interested in is people's keys to their winning mindset, right? Because we've all been through adversity, right? Losses are inevitable, so are wins, right? You mentioned you're a half glass full kind of guy, right?
Right.
And that you don't stress because you know everything's going to work out. So if someone is listening to this, maybe they're going through a difficult time. What would you say are your keys to having that winning mindset?
Well, I think it's kind of like, I think almost like as an artist, or an athlete, I think you have to be kind of, first and foremost, before you kind of like start applying things that you've learned, I think you're kind of either born a certain way or you're not. Just kind of start. You're born with certain attributes and you're not, right? And then it's like, okay, if I'm not the fastest person, I got to work on that, So I think that just overall awareness, main awareness, mindset, but then also you got to put the work in though too. So I mean, I don't think that with anything. So you being able to, when I say awareness too, recognizing you have these certain issues. So Misty, I was looking something that you said too about the FAST acronym that you had.
Excuse me, we did our homework.
So I saw the FAST acronym and I related to that too because I played tennis probably 10 years of tennis. I was, very, very heavily involved in tennis. And one of the things.
Are you playing paddle or pickle?
Not now. Not now, because also now that I'm painting so much, I'm not really on the court as much anymore. But that's the new wave now. All the tennis players now are moving over to paddle and pickle.
Please come. Please play. I'll invite you.
Okay, I'm down. So, tennis is one of those things you can't really get too excited, or you got to let the game come to you a little bit more. And also, too, as an athlete, you kind of like, or a football player, you're kind of more into attack mode, but you got to let the game come to you a little bit more. So I used to get, have my moments on the court, but what I would do is I would find a spot on my tennis racket and kind of like play with the string right there, calm down, talk to myself a little bit, take a breath. So when I saw the fast thing, I'm like, it reminds me of the tennis court, But I think it's just being able to put the work in and just kind of just knowing where your weaknesses are and knowing how to attack that. I mean, or at least finding avenues to attack that.
I love that.
Definitely sets up somebody for a winning mindset. And I love that earlier you also said you always have you always seem to have the right people around you.
And also too having a game plan though too, right? So I mean, you can't, if you want to accomplish anything, you got to have a game plan, So if you're just kind of going into things like, hey, I want to accomplish 3 shows this year, and you just kind of take a whim on it. No, but I mean, I think with anything in life, if you're prepared, if you have the information, you're prepared, and then you implement the strategy to it.
So with regards to your art career, which is what you're focused on now, who do you follow in the art world, or who do you draw your inspiration from?
Everybody. I mean, literally though, because it's kind of like, I'm in the training business too. So let's say if I'm looking over at somebody in the gym and they're doing something completely wrong, it still might give me a little idea of something for another exercise, So for art, if my eyes are open, like if I walk into a room and then like a person who necessarily isn't tapped in on their creativity like that, walk into a room, we're going to see 2 completely different things. I walk into a room, I'm looking at the lighting, I'm looking at composition, I'm looking at shadows, I'm taking pictures already. And, so I'm drawing inspiration off that. Other artists, at nighttime, I'm on YouTube a couple hours a night, pretty much almost every night, just because I love it. But I'm looking through art videos, what people are doing, technique, as far as other artists, I'm a big supporter of other artists though too. So I'm not the type of person that's like, I can't share this person's work or put this person on because they might not want to buy my painting now, So, and then with that, because with artists, I mean, I'm not a gatekeeper of anything, but at the same time, you want to share your gems with the people that, are genuine with you, So if you come in with a genuine mindset and you want to connect with other artists, they're going to give you the gems too. So,
right.
But literally, I mean, I got a lot of amazing artist friends, around the country, outside the country, constantly looking at their work, looking at techniques. When I go to an art show, people a lot of times will come up like, oh, what do you look like? They'll know that I'm tapped in because I'm looking at the painting like this close, So, because I want to see techniques and different things like that. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah. But I got a lot of amazing artist friends that are really supportive, and it's a big community like that. And creativity inspires creativity. So,
We just met with a new artist at was it Scope or Untitled? Untitled. Teron Cooper Sorrells. So
Okay.
I just discovered him, and his gallerist is also African American, formerly from Harlem, out of New York. And he's an African American artist as well, but like he was someone new that we just discovered during this last session of the art world, because as you guys know, there's Art Basel, Art Miami, Scope, Untitled, Nada, Design Miami, and I'm probably still missing a few.
Right.
So I'm only two years now in the art world, and I've been traveling the world learning. Like I did London Freeze, I did Paris Plus the first year, I did to Toronto, we're going to New York this year. So museum travels, and so learning all these different things. I'm just interested into like which artists you're like talking to now and like discovering their works, because there's so many new and emerging artists post COVID as well, because of like a lot of creativity just like came right out of the pandemic as well.
Right.
Yeah. Great. Speaking of COVID was like, I mean, there were a lot of good things that came out of COVID also, like your like your Zoom filter you just mentioned. But
I don't have a Zoom filter on people. I don't know what he's talking about. This is my regular face.
Sorry, so that was pre-show. Sorry, no. Not like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it was almost. So I was in Canada for almost a year. During all that happening, because I was dating my ex was in Toronto, so they closed the border. So when I could go into Toronto, but then if I left, I couldn't go back into Toronto. So then I had the art stores were all closing down. I bought like a whole bunch of canvas, a whole bunch of paint, and it was almost like I was in a 1 year long art residency.
Right.
So I mean, I woke up, painted, ate lunch, painted all night until 2 a.m. Woke up, did that again. So like that alone, just the advancement of that alone, It was like 3 years within like a year, 5 years and within a year. So that was amazing, COVID. But as far as other artists, though, I mean, there's so many other artists. A good friend of mine, Bradley Theodore, and a lot of Canadian artists.
Oh my God, Bradley Theodore. He was isn't he the artist we used for the Kennedy Kids Foundation auction 2 years ago?
Bradley's an awesome guy. Bradley, for 2 years, we've been, we're going on year 3, but for 2 years we did an event, an activation at Art Miami, and we would auction off a couple of pieces, and Bradley was our featured artist. He would give us a few pieces every year that we auctioned. Bradley, had gone through some things, some as a child growing up, as we all do. So he connected with us, and Brian, hopefully one day we can use some of your pieces, man.
We're looking for an artist for this year's event.
Yeah.
And we actually open Art Miami every year with our own end of the year event at the opening day of Art Miami. So the paintings go on display on easels, and the whole 2 weeks leading up to the event, they we share the bidding so that people can bid, and then 100% of the proceeds go to the foundation. And and that night the whole board gets together and we do our recognition event and whatnot. So I'd love to invite you. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
You just let me know when you need me.
Yes.
I'm in.
That's awesome.
That's so funny.
Off the list,
Bradley Theodore, though, of all people, like that's
Bradley's a great. How'd you meet Bradley?
So I was, I'm a big fan of art in general. So I used to be a big collector too. So like before I was actually in the painting, I would just constantly was buying. My house was very eclectic with a bunch of artists and stuff like that.
Wow.
Then when I started painting, I was like, I can kind of use my house as like a gallery in a sense. And like, just make everything at the house when people come over, everything's available on the wall. And,
awesome.
If you're not really tapped in, you can't, a lot of people can't visualize. So like if you're tapped in though, I can pull up at your house and go out of the trunk and just show you something. You're like, oh, I get it. But other people, if you have to walk in, they hand you a glass of champagne. It's on the gallery it's on the wall of a gallery. It looks different to them, Right. So now it's like, oh, the gallery liked it. Oh, it must really be something. So you're looking at it with different eyes,
Yeah.
Right.
So also your curator's usually walking you around the gallery too, telling you, hey,
So and it's easier to speak about I can speak about other artists and sell their work better than my own because it's just different like that. But so Bradley, I was a big fan of Bradley's work before I knew him. I happened to be, it was like maybe like 5-6 years ago. I was at Basel, and I don't care about celebrity. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm not starstruck any of that. I mean, the only person I really wanted to meet was Michael Jordan. Met him, so I was good on that. But now, as far as I'm like a celebrity, or I'm like a fanboy for other artists, though. You know,
Right.
so like if I see another artist that I really appreciate their work, or really want to meet them, so I saw him. I told my friend, I was like, oh, that's Bradley over there. I gotta go say what's up. So I went over there and said what's up. Him and I hit it off from like that day. We've been friends since. Popped up at the studio. It was genuine. He's like, oh, use these brushes. These are the best brushes.
Yeah.
That. So we've had a good connection since then. So now I have probably like four pieces of his work. This is actually one, right? Shout the homie out real quick.
That's
cool.
it.
Yeah. So
Cool.
yeah. But so now I don't have really anybody's work up on the walls. Stuff's in storage, but I just kind of use my own place for that now. But
that's awesome.
And that's cool. Do you have a studio locally?
I do actually. I'm kind of like in a little bit of a limbo with my studio because so the 31st of this month I have to be out. So I had a real big studio. I had 4,000 square feet over here in Hollywood, Florida. There was some issues with the building code wise, and so I gotta move out of there. And I'm actually going to look at a place today, an old bank. So it could be interesting. Yeah, it has a vault and all that kind of stuff. So my space has been great though. So like a lot of artists come over. It's a hangout spot. I let them paint on the walls and do whatever they want to over there. Yeah, so the House of Genius is coming to an end for this location. So right now I'm kind of like everything's in pack up mode. I haven't really painted in the last 3 weeks because everything's kind of packed away. I mean, I'm doing more stuff right now at people's houses and painting on walls, murals, things outside the studio at the moment.
Wow.
How would you describe your art style?
I would say it's contemporary abstract.
Contemporary abstract. I thought that's what I saw, but I want to give you the option.
Yeah, and then for me too is like, like my first show that I had, I didn't really understand. Well, it's almost like the more you know, the less you know in a sense. But when I had my first show, it looked like there was 5 different artists in the room, because everything was like this style, this style, this style, this style, and it was kind of like I didn't really have my language yet. So as an artist, you keep on working every day in order to, find your language or what your signature is, something that, when you walk by, you're like, oh, that's a Poli-Dixon. Oh, it looks like a Genius character, So, so now what I do though is because for me, I don't want to be stuck in a box, so because I kind of thought too, like, well, who's to say I can't do that? Who's to say I can't be like, hey, I got all these different styles over here, but then it's kind of like this weird relationship between the gallery and the artist, to where the gallery kind of makes you feel like you need them when really they need you,
Oh, yes.
And now with social media, you have these platforms now that you can create your own platform and sell stuff directly and kind of, create the situation. And there is benefits to using the gallery too.
Right.
But yeah, so I don't know where I was going with that. I was saying.
I asked what your style was.
Oh, okay, yeah. So now what I do is I still continue to want to do different styles. So I probably have like 6 different series, like my flamingos, my cubism, flower series, my genius series, life is lived outside the box series. So I have all these different series that I can mentally still feel creative and have the space and the freedom to jump into these different series. But then now I'll just kind of group them. So now I can have a show that I just show Genius and I can show 20 pieces. Or I can have a show that's just, flowers. Or like I did a show before that was called Human Nature, and I showed half Genius, half flowers. So it was kind of like this merge between the two. So, but all of my work for the most part falls within contemporary abstract, painting wise, for sure. But I like to consider myself more of a creator rather than just a painter. Because, I'm doing clothes, I'm designing stuff for people's houses, collaborations with companies, stuff like that. So,
did you know that Genius has been your most successful, brand so far, correct?
Right.
Painting.
Yeah.
When you were doing, some artists sometimes they or musicians they create a song and in their mind they go, this is it. This is going to be a hit. When you were doing Genius, did you feel like, okay, I think this is going to be the one? Did that happen for you?
It didn't necessarily happen on the word of Genius or the branding of Genius. It kind of, that for me is more about like the painting per se.
Right.
If I were to have that feeling towards a piece, I didn't have, because I feel like it's almost like I'm bringing up Michael Jordan again, but like the name Michael Jordan isn't Michael Jordan until he makes it Michael Jordan.
Right.
So I don't think you go like, so for me, it was just a matter of, because if I had to break down my umbrella, it's Brian Poli-Dixon art, then Genius, and then everything kind of feeds down through those,
Right.
So if I put it in my book, I know it has legs.
Right.
So what I want to do with it, how I want to format that or present it or curate that, is still TBD. When I did the character, I think it's more the messaging as far as what took it to the next level for me was encompassing the last two letters of Genius as us, really encompassing the messaging, and then it being one of those things that everybody could relate to, with the package behind it. So that's like, if I roll around, I'm signing things Genius. That's how that's how it goes. Which was actually pretty cool. Was the other day I signed a football card for somebody and I put Genius also too on it. So
that's wow.
That was cool.
Great.
That was as I'm signing, I'm like, hey, this is the first time I ever put Genius on a card.
Wow.
So that was a cool full circle moment. But Genius,
and you did that, and you did that like just you didn't think about it; it just happened.
Yeah, because it was like that's how I identify. I've never been the person like, there's some guys that like they have their football number in the shower, on the back of their head seat, on their car, when you walk in. That's how they identify when they're out. Oh, I play football. I do this. I do that. I just have nenever been that guy. I just felt like I was just bigger than the sport I was playing. So
right.
Like I walk around as an artist. So sure, I'm 6'5", tall black guy. So people, oh, you play basketball, you do this. Obviously that comes with the territory, but only if that comes out and it makes sense do I even go into all of that. And I think that still might be a little bit of a trigger for me anyway, because it's still, even though I've moved on and I still feel good on the inside, it's still painful though. There's still like a woulda, coulda, shoulda, and it's just not being how I wanted it to go. And I feel since it was stripped from me like that, it still kind of hurts a little bit. But but so I think maybe that has a little bit, like I'll even have like imposter syndrome a little bit to this day on certain things. When I get, let's say OJ, for example, he has a celebrity, bowling tournament. And he's like, yeah, we want to get you into, I'm like, well, for maybe on the art thing, but not like, so like, no, B, stop doing that, man. You were there, you did your thing, you went through a lot, like own that for yourself. So I kind of still struggle with, owning that, but I've never also too been the person that walked around boisterous about playing ball anyway. So,
right.
Yeah.
That's interesting that you say that. You identify more as an artist than a football player.
I do.
Even though he made the NFL. Like he did what was it, 4 years or how many?
Yeah, I bounced around about 4 years, and I tried to go do arena, but my leg was dust.
So. And but you are a former NFL alumni. I'm a former NFL alumni.
True.
Like at the end of the day, my checks had like the Miami Dolphins on it, and they paid me to be on the field for every game day that they played. So, but even too, like sometimes when people introduce me as a former NFL cheerleader, even when they say NFL, I get the impression of it, but yours is like so different because it was, you had a vision of what this life was going to look like and how long you worked on this and to get there. And then you made it to combine, which is huge. And then I get that, but I love the transparency of it. I love how open and honest you are about it, but I really think you should own it because it is what you did. And most people didn't even make it that far. They can't even say they made a team. So you can. And now you're an artist. So now you're something else. You didn't go into life insurance after you retired from football. You like have your own art career as well. And
there's nothing wrong with life insurance, by the way.
Right.
No, I know. I own an insurance agency. I know I have a life insurance license. I know there's nothing
Right.
wrong with it, but you know,
Right.
I went into life insurance after, you know, but
Right.
like he didn't go into sales, he went into something different and he's still chasing another passion. He didn't just have one, his
Right.
whole life didn't just revolve around one singular passion. And
But
so I imagine you painting and it being a form of meditation as well for you at some level.
No, of course, but you know, to kind of touch on what you said though, I think though too, if you're a competitor, 'cause I'm ultra competitive. I don't care if we're skipping stones. I want to beat you. You know.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
You know, to the point where I can be a poor sport sometimes. You know.
Yeah,
So,
me too. Me too.
so
Me
I
too.
think though that like being that like ultra competitive person, the reason why I'm not connected to it the same is because it didn't go how I wanted to. Or let's say if
I
you
was
play
just
in a
about
game-
to say that.
Yeah.
I was
Or
just about to
if you
say
play in a
that.
game, I could take an L if I earned the L. You know,
Right.
if you guys were just better than us and you beat us and I gave my best, okay, I can take that. But to then go out there and just play terrible or be hurt or something like that, it's like that kind of still just eats at you a little bit. It doesn't feel the same. So I think that has something to do with too on how I speak about it also.
Right.
You know?
Right. But I can relate to that. So there are games in my career that we won, and it's because of the expectation that we put on ourselves. So there's games in my career that we won, guys, and everybody in the locker room was cheering, and I was depressed because
Right.
I did not have anything to do with the win. Like, I didn't do anything. You know, I was on the field, but I didn't make any special plays. And I'm
Right.
more upset with my personal, like, what I did on the field personally, and not that we want that. Hey, I just helped the team win, but because I didn't play at a standard that I was in the locker room pissed off. I
Right.
walked out pissed off, and I'm like, I can't wait to the next game. And so listen to how selfish this is. There are games that we lost, and
I did my thing.
and I dominated my
Right.
player. I dominated the guy I was covering. No catches. I had an interception. And we lost, but I'm happy because in my mind, I did what I reached the expectation that I had for
Right.
myself. And I was like, I did my thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's so crazy. I mean, it's so crazy that I hear you talk about, like, you don't identify with football because you didn't reach where you know you could have, what
Right.
you could have done, and the success you could have had. So you got injured. And I think that's a burden that we carry. And I think it's unfair that you carry that burden, even though you had this high expectation, because you are part of the elite to even be there, right? You were part of the elite, but it's just a special thing that athletes have in terms of this deep down desire to personally dominate. And when we don't dominate, it actually manifests itself in us in a negative way. And we end up becoming depressed over a bad play, a bad game, whatever it is. And I carry that stuff with me during the off season. And this is 30-something years, 20-something years later, I'm still telling you, I'm still like thinking about games I had played bad.
Right. Yeah.
Misty could probably help me. Misty, I need some tools for that, Misty. I need some tools to help me through that.
I got
The programming that you guys go through just as young men, as boys, like from birth, like some of you have been playing football since you were 5. So this is what's programmed into your head every, like, I don't know how many times you practice a week, game days on the weekend. But like since 5, Brian started in his junior year at high school, which is still very early. You're still formulating who you're going to be as a man and a dude. And all your the way I saw coaches treat my firstborn son when I enrolled him in like Pee Wee football or whatever.
Yeah, you can believe it.
The way they screamed at him as a child, the way they cursed him out. Like, I was mortified. I could not.
Me and Brian got cursed out a lot. I'm telling you.
It isn't. No, even when we interviewed Terry Crews and he said what the coaches were saying to him and why men can't cry or be mentally unhealthy for fear of not being drafted for their sports team that they worked their whole lives for. Like, you got to look at where this stems from. Like, somewhere along the way, do we change the way that happens so you're not as programmed to be as aggressive and competitive and have to win everything? And when you win, you feel like it's a depression, and it's when you don't win, you feel like it's a failure and depression. Like, do we change that? Because then that would change the outcome of what athletes look like. But it's like when you look at it as a parent and someone's yelling at this kid that you pushed out yourself and being like, you effing did it, you did an effing N-word, mother F. Like, what the hell? Are you serious? And I pay to put my kid here, like, get the F out here. Like, it's crazy.
Well, I think
they're set up to fail.
I think you could have both, right? So, I mean, back in the day, it was like, I mean, water was for the weak, you know, if
until kids were dying on football fields without water.
Listen, I went to the Brian. I'm gonna let you talk, but I have to say this. I went to the doctor. My kidneys were failing. Like, I don't know how long ago. 6 months ago. 3 months ago. Right. My kidneys are failing. You know what they were failing from? Because I didn't drink enough water, and I never drank water. And it all happened from me being in Little League, coaches telling me, you're soft if you drink water. Right. And Brian, I went my whole career and never drank water.
Wow.
And it finally caught up to me. Now I drink, when I wake up, I drink a pint of water when I wake up every morning.
This is not okay with me. This is not okay.
That's how those. That was how, as Bailey was saying, that's how I was programmed. Dude, I didn't drink water. If you watch all of my NFL games, I never walked to the middle of between the benches and grabbed water. Never. Wow. Because I thought, man, I'm not getting that water. I'm soft if I get that water. Right. I'm out here to play. Like, I went through the whole game, no water.
Wow.
Yeah. My whole career. And it finally caught up to me where my kidneys were like, dude, like, you're 56 years old. You're not drinking water?
Right. I'm surprised
you. Us. We love you. Help us.
Right. But
Brian, do you remember that happening to you? Like, any specific moment in your career where a coach, like, for Terry Crews, a coach told him, your name is Tyrone, and if you don't answer to that, you're not going to be here.
Apple the bus ticket.
Yeah. Have you had a moment in your career where a coach had an effect on you negatively like that, where it affected your mental health?
I would say it's twofold. In one way, yes, but then once he explained it to me, then it clicked for me. So for me, since I'm always like going to be my worst critic, so it's like, let's say I drop a ball, you don't even got to tell me catch the damn ball. I've already killed myself over that. You know what I'm saying? Yes. So that's the worst thing you could tell me at that moment. Right. I already know. But so when I was playing sports, especially like when I came over to football. So now I'm coming over there. I was an elite soccer player. I was playing basketball, kind of stuff like that, running track, came into football. And my coach to this day, we're still boys. You know what I'm saying? This guy is a legend. But, and he was on my ass, though. You know what I'm saying? So I'm over here like, buddy, like, relax. Like, I'm just learning the game. And then I would get real pissed, And, and I had a little temper tantrum on the field one day. And, I went and sat in the stands. And
what?
Yeah, practice. Practice.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant the game.
No. It wasn't no Antonio Brown or nothing like this. But so I did that. And then afterwards, he gets like, Brian, I need you to understand. I'm on your ass like that because I care about you and I see potential. You know what I'm saying? And if I wasn't on you like that, it's because I don't see it in you like that. So that moment for me clicked. So I used to get balled up mad on certain things. Not that I wasn't coachable, but if you came at me like Bailey is saying, and you came at me like crazy, yelling at me, trying to call me out in front of people and stuff like that, I just really wasn't receptive to that so much. I would kind of more shut down. Not saying I was like some bad team, a bad teammate and stuff like that, but I just really wasn't receptive.
No, some people don't respond to that. Some people do, like they need that to be motivated, and some people makes them shut down.
And now I'm the kind of guy though too. I mean, I want people around me that can be like, yo, get your ass out of traffic. Like, you're standing in the middle of the road right now. Like, get the hell out of there. What are you doing? Because iron sharpens iron. So I'm mentally tapped in on that much differently than I used to be. And that's what I want around me, But so then I mean, just so I appreciate that guy to this day, but also too, like, going back to, do we have to have the coaching be so aggressive or these different things like that? Like you're saying. And one of the same coach, he said to me, because, parents, they always kind of have something to say, playing time or how kids are being treated. But he used to say, like, coaches coach, players play, and parents parent.
Right.
But so I think there has to be, because I'm definitely not the person who believes in the participation award. Okay.
Right.
And I don't believe, yeah. So, that doesn't build winners, and if losing doesn't bother you, you're a loser. That's how I look at it, So you want to have that competitive, space because that's what brings out the best in people is competition, and I want those hyped up practices and all those kind of things like that. But at the same time, I think as an adult, and when you're mentoring or you're in charge of, developing young kids, you also have to understand that can be detrimental to somebody. Because
let me ask you about that, because I have worked with people and their biggest block is something a coach once said to them and they cannot fucking get over it.
Right.
And so what would you say to somebody listening who might be dealing, and some of these people are adults now, but it still messes with their ability to perform in whatever it is that they're doing, because it's sort of like, this coach said this to me and now it's like
just drinking water now.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, no, they're never going to drink water, because even though they know it's healthy or whatever it is, it just kind of like things affect
Robert
people
didn't
different
know it
ways.
was healthy. Robert thought it was only for the weak.
Yeah, Robert, only if you're weak, you drink water. So, cheers, by the way. So, cheers. So, like, what would you say, Brian, to somebody who, whether they're is currently an athlete or they're a former athlete or whatever it is, and somebody has said something like that of that magnitude and it's still sitting with them, like, how would you say to them, this is how, maybe you can get over it by thinking it this way?
I think everything, for the most things in life, especially like mental health and things like that, or just situational awareness is, it's the glasses that you look at life through, right? So it's kind of like everybody kind of has different glasses. And I think that has a lot to do with your mental health, right? So between like information, awareness, and perception. And with perception, it's the glasses that you look at things through. So I think that part of it's going to have to just be the learning process of growing and, understanding that, life can be hard. People have critics out there and stuff like that, but just kind of really embracing those things, situations. So I would just say, like, if the person, because I'm not hard on people, but, like the people I train are kids and stuff like that. And I try to program them too, to where it's like, I'm just saying these things because I care, or even like down to the locker room with jokes. So like with me, I'm, as Rob probably knows too, like locker room, it's like, because I'm constantly telling jokes, I'm quick with it, because like in the locker room, you better be ready for those jokes.
Yeah.
So it makes you quick and it toughens your skin up a little bit. Yeah. But at the same time, when I try to bring some of that outside of the locker room, some people don't joke the same. They kind of take it personal. And I have to say too, like, if I'm joking with you or interacting with you, it's because for me, I care about you or I like you. So I would think that if someone's investing the time into you and taking time to criticize or critique or any of these kind of things like that, knowing it's coming from a place that wants to make you better and it's not trying to come and trying to rip you down.
I love that. I think that that's a really good way for people to think about it, is that maybe it's sort of their investment moment. Terry Crews, that was not his story. He thought that's what it was going to be, and that did not end up being his situation with that coach that he talked about. But I do think a lot like that does happen pretty commonly. My boxing coach, she's a professional MMA fighter, by the way. And I'm training and she'll be yelling at me, I am not your friend. And she'll straight up tell me afterwards, if I was not paying attention to you, that mean like I gave up on you.
Right.
If I wasn't in your face, I gave up on you.
Right.
But then I think though that kind of goes back to participation awards and like that grew me from as a kid, knowing that, it's not all, butterflies and rainbows out there too. So I think that if you just kind of give too many pats on the back, too much babying, too much of all this kind of stuff too, I kind of feel like it also sets a kid up for disappointment later on.
I don't agree.
It's trauma. Is trauma almost maybe just necessary for the journey? Because everyone's gone through trauma, but has it come to a point where it's necessary in order to build your character? Is that what
I think it's inevitable.
Yeah, I think it's inevitable. I think everyone is going to go through trauma, and then like, how does everyone react to their trauma? Is the key, right, Misty? So, like, you personally could have gone through trauma differently, but your coach may explain to you why he said what he said, and it gave you the opportunity to then flip that situation, and now it became positive.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the same. The trauma would have came from the same place, but because of what happened afterwards, it allowed you to redirect where you were going to put that in your psyche.
I want to spin this just a little bit, because something Brian said earlier, like right at the beginning of the show, with the whole, like, when someone tells you the stove is hot and you still got to touch it. It's like, as a older woman now, like I'm 48 now, and I had to think for a second, because that's what happens at 48-year-old brain. But anyway, so like through my life, there were women ahead of me that constantly said, hey, don't do this, or hey, this is coming, or hey, like they're giving you the little words of wisdom. And it's not until you go through, let's call it the trauma with what you're saying, Robert, but really at the end of the day, those are the lessons that shape up to people we are now. Because there was I did an Oprah Live Your Life tour when she first came to Miami, and brought that tour over. And there was a worksheet that she made us do. And she said, write all the bad stuff that happened to you in your life. And for me, I'm a survivor of sexual abuse from a parent as a child, right? So that was like the main thing that I wrote down. And it was the main thing, that trauma for me, that was like going through my life and through my relationships and destroying certain things and made me make certain decisions. But at the end of the day, when I was sitting in that course, about an hour later into the course, she goes, write all the great things about yourself and all the successes you've had and everything, da 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 da. So then they flip the page again, and you forget you've done these 2 pages. And at the end, she asked everyone, she goes, what would you remove from that page of traumas that might change the person that you became today? And so, because I couldn't answer that question, like, which lesson or trauma could I have taken away that would have changed who I became? I could have become somebody completely different without the traumas that I went through, but which really at the end of the day became lessons that built my character and became who I was. So even though there were people telling me what not to do because they were older and ahead of me, I wish, looking hindsight 2020, that I'd listened to the wisdom, because some stuff that pops up in your life, you're like, somebody told me about this, and then you didn't do it, but you had to learn it the hard way. And sometimes people just have to learn the hard way to become who they are today. And then you have to change 100%. The glasses that he said, change the glasses that you're looking through on what you're looking at, because then you can change the perspective. Like he even said, when his coach said X, it wasn't until the coach explained why he said X to him that it changed it for him as well. So it's all about perspective, honestly, at the end of the day, and being able to shift the perception of it.
Yeah.
I think this was a great show today. I really thank you, Brian, for like all your wisdom and all the insights. I learned so much more about you, your transparency level, and like the things that you've been involved in long term. I didn't really know much about the art side. I knew a snippet. I knew barely nothing about the NFL side, but I knew about the personal training and stuff. So even for me, it was very revealing. But we always like to ask our guests where people can find you, where they should follow you, where's what you would like to share with them at the end of our podcast. So
well, my social both my Instagram and my Facebook are both Brian Poli-Dixon Art. My website is Brian Poli-Dixon Artwork. I mean, those are like probably the 3 best ways to find me. I'm accessible, and then I'm always posting what I got going on. So there's like updates on my website on what's in the future or what I'm working on. So I'm excited for 25, and I appreciate you guys all having me on it. It's definitely an eclectic group, which is always fun. So,
we are eclectic.
Yeah.
Very eclectic.
Yeah. We are eclectic, but we want to ask. So Brian, we have a question that we started asking guests at the end of every show. So there's kind of been a theme here about mental health, wellness. If you're going through a hard time, we talked about it. Sometimes it's hard to see on the other side of that. You don't always have the information while you're going through it to know what that lesson is or what's on the other side of that. So what would you say are your top 3 ways to change your mood or attitude, or to improve your mental health at this point in your life? Like when something happens and something pops up, like what are your top 3 tools that you use right now today?
Well, I like going to the studio, one. that's a great outlet for me. I mean, when I'm not in the right headspace, it's not that I'm going to create something amazing, because I'm the type of person that has to be in more of a positive headspace to like produce something that I feel good about. I feel like with singer-songwriters, like they do better in the negative space. It's easier to
in their
write,
pain.
to
Break
write
up the
about,
pain.
yeah, that kind of stuff. So even if I'm in the studio and I'm adding layers, a lot of times that I'm not going to end up keeping those, but or I paint on the wall, stuff like that. That's one. Exercise, being outside, clear your headspace. And then also too, just kind of taking some time like to myself, and because your brain can kind of like, it starts going all different directions and you're creating scenarios that don't even exist. So kind of just.
Oh, that's my favorite hobby. How did you know?
Yeah, the mental stress of that, it's a lot. So just trying to stay grounded, kind of taking some breath work and just kind of tapping in and just realizing, too, that you're spinning this in a whole different direction that it has to go. So kind of taking a step back on that a little bit. Easier said than done on that one, though. But, getting in the studio and doing something physical. And then, I mean, obviously a little spicy marg doesn't hurt either.
That is so awesome. Well, guys, you know where to find him. Look up his artwork, find him, follow him. And we are so thankful and grateful that you came on the show again today. If you or a loved one is struggling in an If you or a loved one is struggling and the situation is urgent, please dial 911. Otherwise, you can dial 988 to talk to a crisis counselor on the crisis line. And if you're looking for additional resources, visit www.kennedykids.org and reach out to one of our team members. We'll be happy to help you and share mental health resources in the community. Thank you again, Brian Dixon. We are so Poli-Dixon, holy like Poli. We're so happy again to have you on.
I appreciate you guys.
Holy like Poli. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Brian.
You ain't got a choice. You gotta notice me living my best.